Mother and Daddy had just gotten married when they were like 20, 21. And so we lived in the tenant house for a while. And then when I was about 3, I suppose, we moved into town, a little town called Fair Dealing, because Mother was a teacher. She had gone to normal school to be a teacher. I'm not sure how many years that took, but she got this job teaching in the one room with all 8 grades in it. And so we went from the town there because the school was there. And I went with her a lot when I was 4 years old. And so I stayed with my grandmother, but I'd go to school and I learned to read. And so when we moved the next year to Poplar Bluff, which was a town of maybe 20,000, and I enrolled at school, they thought because I could read, they put me in the 2nd grade, which was all right, except I knew no spelling, no math, anything else, so that was a little difficult. And it meant that all through high school, I was the youngest one in the school. My family were Christians and always went to church, and I'm so very grateful for that. When I was 8 years old, I believe, on Easter Sunday morning, I went down and confessed that I believed in Jesus and that he was my Savior. And I know some people think that's very young and you don't understand what you're doing at that age. And of course you don't understand, whatever age we are, we don't understand all the ramifications of becoming a Christian. But I've always been assured of my salvation. Church was very important in our lives. Other things too, I remember when I was 10, some way in Poplar Bluff, the word got around, maybe in the newspaper, that an airplane was coming to town. No one had ever seen an airplane. I certainly hadn't. Never been one to Poplar Bluff. So we all went out to see the airplane. It was amazing. Open cockpit, one engine. And then they said if you wanted to take a ride, you could for $5 or $10, I've forgotten which, but in the Depression, it was a lot of money. And my dad turned to me and said, "Do you want to go up?" And I said, yes, that was so exciting. And so we went up a very short ride, I'm sure, and looked out at Poplar Bluff. I think that was the most exciting thing I'd ever done. When we lived on the farm, of course there was no ice box. And my grandparents had a spring, so they kept their food in the spring. They built a spring house over it. The animals didn't get it, and that was really neat. But when my mother and dad were married in a tenant house, they didn't have a spring, so they had to put a little box under the living room floor and then cut out a gate so you could open it. And one day, Mother got something out of it, and there was a snake in it, and it was caught. It couldn't get in and out, just weaving around. And she was terrified. But she took me and put me outside and went and got the shotgun, and she was going to shoot that snake. She shot a few times and never hit the snake, of course. So she went and got the hoe and chopped it to pieces. So we should really appreciate our refrigeration. But there was no way I was going to go to college, but God did intervene. There was a woman, unmarried and very interested in the youth work, and she did all kinds of things with us on that, and she came to my parents and said she would like to pay my tuition to school if I would go to Cincinnati Christian College, which we'd never heard of. But she had a good friend, Judge Hathcock in Atlanta, Georgia, who was, he was just so enthused about this college. And so we talked and I decided to go. They decided I could go. And got on the train and went to St. Louis and changed and went to Cincinnati and didn't know a single person there, but it was
You were
good.
16 or 17 at
I was 17 by then. And it was a great influence on my life. Changed.
And that was where you met Daddy up there? How did that happen?
Right. He was 2 years behind me. I was just a year older, but because I was younger in the deal. And so he didn't come till I was a junior. And I hadn't met him, but we hadn't dated or anything. I think it was October. They had a school picnic, and called it Sneak Day, but it was the profs and everything knew all about it. It was coming, but we were out in a park there, and we were swinging. I was swinging with a really tall guy and pumping, and I guess we went too high. I just slid out between his legs and fell flat in a mud puddle. And so my husband-to-be got up and came over and wiped the mud off my face, and I suppose he said, not too bad. Anyway, we started dating.
That's where Here's a picture of my dad standing in front of the church, and they did some renovations. It didn't look like that when they first got there, and did renovations and added on a whole lot, and anyway, stayed there for 27 years as the minister of the First Christian Church of Miami. And so then you started having a family.
It was obvious as time went by that that was where God wanted us. He led us there, and I guess obvious that he wanted us to have a big family as well. We had 2 girls, Ann and Julie, and then we had 2 more girls, one of them sitting on the front row here, Connie and Vicki. And then we had 2 boys, and one is Russ and the one in the Philippines. So we were getting a big family. Well, it was always led by God, and Russ always involved people. If I don't lose my voice, when we first went to Miami the first week, there were several people who wanted to be baptized. I don't think they'd had any conversions for years. And so they had a baptistry, but they hadn't used it much. It was full of paint cans and all that sort of thing. Actually, the choir from the choir room took a shortcut through the baptistry into the platform on Sunday morning. But so he had the thing all cleaned out, and then the people said, that's too big, you won't get it filled by Sunday. So he called the fire department, and the fire truck came along, and he stood out front and directed him out back, and they said, where's the fire? And he said, no fire, they just wanted the baptistry filled. And I don't know what they said, but they did fill the baptistry. And that morning, the word wasn't around to everyone the next morning, I guess, because quite a few of the choir members had wet feet and legs as they dashed in before they realized it was full of water. But there were 8 people baptized, and it was a great, great start for the ministry there. Russ had many sayings, and one of them was, anything happened in the children's lives, my life, whatever, he'd say, these are the best times of your life. And looking back, they were the best times of my life. And actually, to be honest, every day is the best time, isn't it? Because yesterday's over. You don't know about tomorrow. Today is what you have. So I always remember that. And to say, life isn't something that you can just take for granted. Everything's going to be wonderful. It isn't always wonderful. There are ups and downs, and there are times when you're sad and times when you're happy. But whatever time it is, God is going to be there. Life is uncertain. We can't depend on sometimes our family and friends, much as they love us. They might disappoint us or even do something that was very hurtful to us. In fact, I do that to myself. I disappoint myself sometimes. But there's one that you can always trust. God keeps his promises, and he will always, always, always be there for you. He will always be faithful. And that is the most important thing in life, that we have that comfort and knowledge that we can depend on.